Hey there, you also new to our camp? The Major just told us that there's orienteering tomorrow.
Yep, it's specifically for soldiers new to the region. He's taking us around the new territories and to get us familiarized with the surroundings. And yes, I'm with you tomorrow.
By the way, comrades, what's your name?
I'm Charlie, and you?
你講嗰條問題呢，同今日考察嘅主題好相關嘅。其實而家嘅香港人呢，唔計非華裔同新移民，絕大部分都係40至70年代大陸走難落嚟嘅，同佢哋嘅後代，為咗將啲英治之前已經喺香港範圍內居住嘅族群同外來人區分呢，先會產生原居民嘅概念。而家原居民已經係香港人口嘅少數。而且新一代幾乎咧冇純種嘅原居民，全部咧都係外來人口嘅溝過晒嘅。
但係原居民同外來人口都係以漢人為主，同埋水上人呢？
疍家人算唔算啊？漢人呢都係有種爭議性嘅。不過我識嘅人類學研究同事咧都當疍家人係漢人。咁下次會再安排去水上人村考察嘅，到時再講啦。講翻開放日，你話阿彭同學就係由抵類政策嗰題開始提水？
好叻啊，小朋友！答案正確，好嘢！下一題香港史，一樣睇 iPad， 見到題目讀翻題目編號，同蘿蔔玩具槍寫落前面 ABC 度。開始139，題目編號139，小朋友答咗 B， 的係處理偷渡問題？
係啊 ，B 偷渡問題。
我份答案只話錯。但係題目問嘅抵類政策，我聽過㗎，我記得好似真係同偷渡有關。
姐姐啊，咁我即係答咗啱定唔啱啊？
喂 ，B 係啱定錯㗎？識唔識答㗎你？仲唔應考小朋友？
阿 Faith， 信我啊，係 B 啊！抵類政策係指1974年港英政府頒布嘅邊境政策，針對大陸落嚟嘅難民。
其他類型嘅題目我都仲勉強應付到，但係香港史嘅嘢，我當時真係要靠 Kenny 提水，誤會咗好奸㗎，同佢講答案指錯咗冇用嘅，佢 soft copy 即刻撳翻復原，咪當冇一件事咯。
哦，所以你就唔同佢哋繼續嘈，繼續頂硬上，然後香港史嗰啲題目就俾彭同學 carry， 明白晒啦。順便講下啦，抵類政策批定咧偷渡客都要遣返嘅，除非入到香港市區都未俾人捉到，咁就俾個香港籍佢啦。咁都變相默認咗1974年之前偷渡落到嚟香港嗰啲人咧都係有香港身份嘅。70年代尾啊，都冇咩人靠偷渡落嚟香港噶啦。再後期咧，出差唔多回歸啦。呢個時候落嚟嗰啲都算係新移民咯。
係咯 ，Thomas 都係大陸嘅新移民。
Thomas 係你喺問答隊嗰度識㗎喎，佢係咪一陣都會嚟？
冇錯啊，一陣 Vivian、Thomas、Hazel 都會嚟，仲有啱啱講嘅 Kenny。
你班手足唔係仲有一個嘅咩
？Olivia， 佢今日唔得閒啊。
咦，前面就到錦田咯喎，你係唔係約咗佢哋喺錦上路站集合啊？
係啊，錦上路。
講翻呢，開放日再之前你同彭同學呢，咁有冇見過面啊？你哋幾時識噶？
彭之話上2年仲好低調噶，之前喺歷史文化學會，即係間中有見過佢個樣。不過佢同 Edgar 好 friend 噶。上年暑假 Edgar 臨走前呢，咪邀請咗我同 Vivian 佢哋一齊去會所開 party 嘅。佢嗰日仲玩埋 Kenny 添，我咪喺嗰度識佢咯。
哦，所以啊 Edgar 上年移咗民，你就想彭同學定翻佢位？
仲有就係校方都幾重視香港史，為咗配合到 DSE 西史課程同埋國民教育大趨勢，所以原居民身份本身就吸引到人支持。學會班師兄姐同埋 Miss John 其實都係想利用 Angela 嘅原居民身份，我哋都要揾翻個新界原居民抗衡佢哋。
係咩？彭同學係原居民啊？
係啊，我阿爸係粉嶺原居民，我仲好細個嗰陣就係阿爸同佢嗰邊啲親戚搞呢啲圍村人嘅文化活動，但係自從阿爸去咗坐監之後，我就冇再見過佢哋。
佢都幾慘喎，咁多年都冇見爸爸，又俾阿媽逼埋讀理科，係咧。但係佢考試識點啊？
喺我哋學校嚟講成績一般，不過以我哋 Band 1 溫中學，佢出到去都唔差㗎，佢就係數學同埋 Phy Chem Bio 成績相對差咯。中西史科成績都幾好㗎，只係冇我同 Vivian Hazel 咁勁。之前啊，佢迫於阿媽壓力，歷史文化方面嘅活動佢都唔敢投入參與。不過佢出席到今日嘅考察活動，佢阿媽已經冇阻止啦，或者佢阿媽都開始嘗試放手。
係咯，唔係個個家長都好似我同你阿媽咁開明㗎。不過我哋相信因材施教先係教育應有嘅原則。
There's a fortress at the end of the school, and that's where we're going.
A fortress? Was it built by us?
No, not by the British military, but the Tangs, a prominent indigenous clan. The Tangs are friends that live around here. We also have branches in Pingshan, Fanling, and Taipo.
Our friends?
That means the Tangs work closely with the British military and government. It's not just them. The Tang, Pan, Hao, Liu, and Man families are the 5 largest indigenous clans of the New Territories.
Are they called indigenous because they are already living here before British colonization?
Exactly. It was only 14 years ago when we took over the New Territories, whereas those villagers have settled here for centuries.
However, I guess a rural frontier region like this would be hard to govern for previous Chinese emperors.
They never really had to film grape. Historically, it has always been the big indigenous families that decide on local affairs. That's why the current colonial government still gives them say. Moreover, the Britons are not as familiar with the region as them, and we do need to consult them on many things.
Hey look, so these are the Tang clan war villagers we've been talking about?
嗱，你哋見到吉慶圍嗰個圍牆咧，同個更樓咧都係康熙年代起嘅喎，佢哋而家仲保存得幾完整㗎。以前呢度啊，同嗰邊太康圍都有護城河嘅，不過太康圍咧嗰個圍牆咧同埋嗰個護城河已經冇咗啦。咁而吉慶圍嗰條護城河咧都填到淨係得翻呢一出啦。咁英國佬攞咗新界之前，村同村久唔久就會發生械鬥噶啦，佢哋咪要起啲圍牆防範敵對嗰啲村落同埋土匪啊、海盜咁咯。
不過又唔係全部原居民村都有圍村，有錢啲嘅宗族，佢哋條村裏面嘅人同貴重嘅嘢都多啲，佢哋咪需要多啲安全保障咯，亦都更容易去負擔到圍牆嘅成本。而窮啲、規模細啲嘅村落就未必需要圍牆啦。冇錢之餘啊，海盜都睇唔上佢哋。講得冇錯啊！而家啲屋苑啊都會請實 Q 啦，而往時嗰啲村長就會揾啲大隻好打得嘅村民做團練，即係好似類似佢哋啲保安員啊，並安排佢哋接受準軍事訓練啊。佢哋有火藥同埋槍炮啊，你睇到啦，嗰啲圍牆上邊嗰啲窿啊，就係俾啲團練咧擺住一個大炮射出去嗰啲敵人嚟嘅。傳統圍村建築嘅嘢，我哋一陣晏晝就去平山了解多啲。而家我哋起步影翻張大合照先啦，然後再去樹屋嗰邊。我哋一陣去個樹屋呢，就係本來喺明代起嘅建築，但係到咗康熙年間，因為遷海令而荒廢咗。新界鄧氏祖籍江西吉水，北宋開始有族人嚟咗錦田住，所以到咗明末清初，鄧氏喺而家嘅新界北一帶都住咗幾百年。當時康熙帝唔想俾沿海嘅居民接濟到台灣嘅明鄭勢力，命令沿海居民搬入內陸嘅地區。鄧氏原本喺錦田嘅村落咪就咁樣荒廢咗咯。間樹屋幾年都冇人住，日久失修，有棵生喺佢隔離嘅榕樹包圍咗間樹屋。鄧族返嚟錦田住嘅時候，樹屋已經住唔到人啦。雖然大清喺收復完台灣就復界，開放翻沿海地區俾人住啦，但係都唔係全部村民有翻嚟嘅啫噃。新界地區咁多荒廢咗嘅地，人又少過遷海令之前，清政府咪要招墾吸引翻啲人落嚟咯。之前未講咗新界原居民有分客家同本地圍頭兩種嘅，啲客家人就係復界之後開始大規模咁嚟到而家新界各地，喺度都300幾年噶啦。不過客家人同水上族群今日就唔會講咁多啦，我哋下次去大埔會講多啲佢哋嘅由來同埋歷史文化。至於呢本地人遷海令之前已經存在嘅有，好似之前講到5大宗族呢，同埋復界之後呢，其他圍頭人呢就會落嚟新界地區，而佢哋嘅後代呢，到咗殖民時代就會成為我哋而家所講嘅原居民啦。原居民嘅文化最核心係2種嘅性質，迷信同埋眾家。原居民對佢哋嘅宗族呢係有好強烈嘅歸屬感，所以家庭都係原居民文化嘅重要嘅一環啦。你哋而家前面呢條石橋呢，就叫變母橋，300幾年前有個鄧氏族人起嘅，係起嚟方便佢哋母親過河。當時康熙帝仲立咗個碑記錄。
Anyways, where are we going now?
We're heading to something where the Mang clan lives.
今日喺錦田嘅行程就完晒啦，我哋而家行翻出去新潭路，搭巴士入天水圍食晏晝，咁下晝咧就去埋屏山文物徑。係咧，志華，你之前頭先問嗰啲問題，
其實揾一個 Kenny 做歷史文化學會真係得嘅咩？
又唔好咁快就講學會交接嘅嘢。Student Council 都講明，考晒 file 先會開始接受來年內閣申請。總之之後再約出嚟嘅話，我都係會預埋 Kenny。
Faith 啊，我同你小學識到而家，阿 Thomas 又同你一齊玩問答比賽，呢個彭志華咩都唔係喎。
同埋你唔覺得佢好煩嘅咩？佢咪好似問答對以前 Mason 咁，做埋晒啲無謂嘢，又煩仲爭。
唔係啊，佢今日發表過嘅諗法同問題都算係有建設性嘅，同埋 Mason 黑人真係去撩事鬥非啊嘛，我又唔覺 Kenny 係咁。我都一早同你解釋過點解要拉攏彭志華噶啦，同埋始終我哋幾個都唔係最了解佢嘅人 ，Edgar 先係咯。
Kenny 身邊嘅朋友都係得阿 Edgar 啫，上年都走埋添。性格孤僻呢點呢，佢同 Mason 一樣㗎。
仲有啲師兄師姐 Student Council 班人，冇一個對佢好印象嘅。
我夠係俾班師兄姐同 Miss John 討厭㗎啦，中意到而家。佢哋啊，一有機會就嚟扇我。但係你哋都知，下個學年歷史文化學會幹事，除咗 Victor 都係得返我哋同屆同學會做咋，同埋可能會有一兩個 Form 2升 Form 3嘅師弟妹咁咯。始終來年嘅內閣人選都係由我哋呢兩屆嘅學生同埋段 Sir 決定嘅，而唔係班師兄姐咯。
又係 Angela 同 Jaden 都想拉攏我同 Thomas。
我哋都唔應該淨係聽佢幾個或者師兄姐講嘅片面之詞就判斷彭志華嘅為人嘅。
講起學會班幹事真係好奸咯，成個攤位遊戲佢個玩法根本就係為咗方便佢哋喺答案紙度落手腳整蠱你㗎咯。
係啊，佢哋仲揾 Angela 同埋隔離攤位啲當值員攞手機拍片添。
Boys, we're heading to Pengshan tomorrow. There's a new village here called Jimmy Tan just elected last week. And there's also from that Tan clan. You, Charles Elias Chandler, can you adopt a Chinese name in front of the locals?
Yes, my mother gave me a Chinese name and it's pronounced as Chen Hon Chen in Cantonese.
That's great, Charlie. Anyway, boys, you'll be part of the retinue tomorrow.
Yes, sir.